time. It's our time, my friends. Time for millions of maturepreneurs, 55 plus, who are hashtag not done by a long shot, to revolutionize how we lead, do business, and innovate our world. I'm your host, Jeanette Anderson, and welcome to my conversations with fascinating people who would rather inspire than retire. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Maturepreneur podcast. I'm your hostess, Jeanette Anderson, and today I have the really interesting and active Shel Horowitz that's calling in to talk about activism for elders. So it's going to be a fascinating conversation and very topical and timely, I suspect as well. Welcome, Shel.
Thank you so much, Jeanette. It's great to be with you.
Awesome. And where are you calling in from? Where are you residing right now, or where are you?
Small town called Hadley, Massachusetts, United States. I live on a working dairy farm. I'm not the farmer, but my neighbors have had that farm since 1806.
Ah, right. Okay. That's right. I remember that now. All right. So let's talk a little bit about you. I will do an introduction, then we'll find out more about you and why you do what you do. And then we're going to talk about activism and how that can become not only something that keeps us engaged and active and contributing, but can be a great force for social good, of course, and potentially even a living for some people. So let me tell you more about Shel here. So activist at 12, marketer and writer at 15, still doing both or all of the above at 69. Shel Horowitz started a movement that saved a mountain, co-formed organizations working on safe energy, LGBTQ rights, immigration justice, and other issues. Worked 18 months as a Vista community organizer, building the Gray Panthers Brooklyn chapter, served 6 years each on a municipal disability rights board and the district attorney's civil rights advisory board, and 9 years on his town's long-range implementation committee, and has studied nonviolent social change since his teens. He's writing his 11th, yes, I said 11th book, An Activism Guide for Elders. So clearly a huge and lifelong passion for you to be involved in community change and social change. That sounds like quite the history and quite the consistent history. So let's tell everybody something about you that they wouldn't guess from looking at your bio or your website or anything like that.
I'm also a poet, and I met my wife when we were both reading at an open reading on a fifth floor walk-up in Greenwich Village in 1978.
Oh, wow. How fascinating. Okay. So you're a poet and a scholar. Okay. Now, before we go much further, 11 books? How?
Yeah, this is my 10th. Which came out already 10 years ago, Guerrilla Marketing, Build the World. That is the fourth of the books I've done on how business can be a profitable venue for social and environmental good.
Okay.
And I've also done 4 books on general marketing and one on how to have fun cheaply, which came out, oh my gosh, 30 years ago.
Wow. Penny Pinching Hedonist, that's a great title.
Yeah, isn't it? I can send you the PDF. And in fact, that's one of the free gifts that people can get on my website is
awesome.
I'm giving that away these days as a PDF. And the first book I did was a stroke of accident that I was working for a literary agent who had written a book on why nuclear power is a terrible thing that I had used in a research project in college a few years earlier. Okay. And when 3 Mile Island hit, he immediately got a contract with a publisher to update that book. And he knew of my involvement with that issue, and he threw that to me.
Oh, okay.
So I had a book out when I was 23, and
wow.
I wrote when I was 22. So it takes me about 6 months to either write or update a book, it seems. It doesn't matter if I'm starting from scratch or starting from a book that's a few years old.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so this will be book number 11 and the first one in a decade, and I'm really excited about doing it. The thing that is standing between me and writing that book right now is that I won't do it unless I find a charity partner, an organization with some tens of thousands of members that I can go to a publisher and say, here's your audience already. All you have to do is print the book. And that'll be a very different conversation in terms of what kind of advance I negotiate and how they treat me and what kind of resources are going to put into it.
Okay, well, that's fascinating. Before we talk about your purpose, I want to talk about that some more. So tell me what you mean in terms of finding a charity partner. Is it that they're supporting your work and therefore they're going to send out information to their group? Like how,
no, it's that I'm supporting their work, that they're going to negotiate with the publisher some amount of money per sale of the book.
Okay.
So if the book sells, let's just say the book sells 100,000 copies and they've negotiated $1 a book, that's a very sizable contribution that is not coming out of my pocket, but out of the publishers, essentially. And in return for that, they're going to put my book in front of their members, and they will also probably negotiate with the publisher the right to be a reseller for the book and get that commission as well on top of the whatever they negotiate for the charity aspect.
Sure.
So it's a win-win revenue proposition for them.
Yeah.
Although I've had a couple turn downs. I got a lovely rejection from Union of Concerned Scientists the other day that said that they didn't think that the terms of their 501c3 charity status would allow them to do that, but they wished me great luck on the project and they're really excited about it. Okay. So I will certainly send them a press release if it comes to fruition and maybe they'll run it.
Yeah. That's a brilliant strategy. I've taught on actually ways to sell mass numbers of books, but that actually I have never heard of that before. It hasn't occurred to me. So it's a brilliant way to partner and create that win-win, like you said.
Yeah, I'm all about that. In my consulting work, I'm doing a lot of looking for the partnership opportunities where everybody comes out ahead.
Cool. And so how does that not come out of your cut of the book, or is it something that they negotiate with the publisher and it comes out of the publisher's profit?
Publisher's profit. But the publisher then could, if they have to raise the price of the book 50 cents or $1, nobody else knows that they're doing that. So it's not a problem.
That makes sense because publishers don't market the book. They want you to market the book. And so bringing an audience of 10,000 or however many from the charity is a brilliant way to do that.
If it's AARP, then it'll be 38 million, but probably only 10% of that is really going to be interested in the subject matter. But that's almost 4 million people. So that would be a very nice partnership to the publisher's eyes. Right.
I was just going to say, of course, AARP would probably be one of the big ones that you would want to go to right away.
I wrote to them. They were the second letter I wrote and got ghosted, never got an answer. But I have had a conversation a week ago with somebody who knows a muckety-muck in that organization, gave me their name. They're still away. So that I have another channel to approach.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, it really does help to have connections. And it sounds like if you can't get in one way, you go in a different way.
Exactly.
The kind of resourcefulness that it takes to be a change maker and a thought leader.
And I'm not averse to using who I know. I've done 2 books with J. Conrad Levinson, the founder of the Guerrilla Marketing brand, one when he was alive and one after he died with his widow's permission to reuse the material he'd given me for the first book, which was a very small amount. We were looking for somebody to do a forward, and I had mentioned that I had approached Stephen M.R. Covey, the son of Stephen Covey. And Jay said, "Oh, I know him. You should have told me." And I would have asked him. And I said, "Well, I'll write him a note and say that you're thrilled that he's considering it." And that's when he said yes.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, very brilliant. Okay. I love how your brain works, Shel. Okay, so let's talk about your why. Why are you so passionate about activism, and what do you think your life purpose is?
Well, I'm passionate about activism for the very selfish reason that I want a better world to live in. And I see no better way to have that better world come about than to dig in up to my elbows and do it. So I'm not any kind of Mother Teresa here. I'm doing it because I want a better world for me, for my kids, for my grandkids, for my neighbors, for all the people who have been under the thumb of authoritarian governments, for all the people who are breathing polluted air that they shouldn't have to. And it's a holistic, intersectional look at how society can change and looking at both big levers and small levers. I believe in Kaizen, but I also believe in sweeping change.
Okay. And so we'll talk about both of those approaches in a minute. What would you say is your life purpose?
My life purpose is to make the world a better place.
Okay.
And that has taken many, many forms over the last 50 plus years. Mm-hmm. I got started with this ridiculously early. I was, as you said,
12.
12. I went to, I know the date, it was October 15th, 1969, because and the reason I know that date is because it was a national event and it was easy to search for online. I'm like, yeah, there it is. That was the date. Okay. So it's not that I'm retaining that.
I was going to say, wow, hell of a memory. Okay. Yeah.
But that was a national moratorium with demonstrations all over the country. And I went to the one in the Bronx where I grew up. Mm-hmm. And one of the speakers said, the Vietnam War is an undeclared war. And I hadn't known that. And everything came cascading down, all that stuff I learned in social studies class about checks and balances and the three powers of government. And boom. And I started questioning absolutely everything.
Wow. Okay. So they say the statement again. What did the person say?
The Vietnam War is an undeclared war.
Ah, okay. And so were your parents also activists? And
my mom was. My mom was a civil rights activist. I'm really proud of her for some of the stuff that she did. She was involved with the Urban League, mm-hmm. and she would be, if a black family was told, oh, that apartment's rented, sorry, a sweet white lady mom would go and ring the doorbell and say, I'm interested in the apartment, and to see what happened. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could have asked her, she passed in 2011, if she'd ever done a Trump property. She probably didn't because geographically those were mostly Brooklyn and Queens and we were in the Bronx.
Right.
But it would have been really interesting to know if she had. Because he and his father were both openly racist and got sued for it. As landlords. That was the first time anybody ever heard of Donald Trump.
Right. Okay, so you come from that kind of background, grew up at a time in history when there was a lot of civil rights movements and activism and social change that was more at the forefront, or at least it was a lot more publicized at that point in the 60s and 70s. But
it's never gone away. It's just, it's not front page news until fairly recently again. Mm-hmm. Most of my activism has been after it faded from the headlines. If you think about the feminist wave, that was really just getting going in 1969. LGBT stuff, Stonewall was 1969. And so all of these movements, disability rights, they barely existed in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they're changing the world. Think about the impact of something like the Americans with Disabilities Act. Think about the impact of the Supreme Court. Oh, where is that Supreme Court now? Legalizing gay marriage across 50 states instantly. We had it already for 10 years by the time they did that here in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. But I think that gave them the courage to do it because they saw that the sky hadn't fallen here.
Right. Okay. And so, I'm sorry, hold on just a second. All right, I'm back after coughing and not wanting to spew in your ears. All right, so Shel, tell me, what is it that drives what you're interested in? Because there are so many different causes that you could be appealing or being active about or working on. So what is it that pulls you the most?
Well, as I said earlier, it's intersectional. It's really all under the big umbrella of the world would be better if this happens and worse if that happens. And how can I steer it toward better?
Right.
That encompasses a lot of things. At the moment, I'm very, very active again in what I was doing 50 years ago around safe energy and nuclear power. And nuclear power is not safe energy, and it's being masqueraded as safe and green, which is totally not the case. And here in Massachusetts, as well as in Michigan and Colorado and New York and some other states, I think like 20 states, they're trying to bring back nuclear power under the guise of what's called SMRs, small modular reactors, which are basically totally untried, lose what little economy of scale there is in nuclear power, which is already the most expensive power that we have, even in the full-size plants, have very little in the way of safety features. So like here in Massachusetts back in 1982, we passed a citizen referendum with 67% of the vote that forces any nuclear power plant to be built. It doesn't say you can't build them, but it says you can only build them if you have safe, permanent radioactive waste disposal and storage, if you have an evacuation plan, if you have a decommissioning plan for the end of life of the plant, and if you can get the citizens of Massachusetts to okay it in a vote. So the nuclear industry cannot meet all but one of those conditions. And therefore, we have not had a new nuke built here in a very long time. The governor is, even though that was a citizen referendum, she's trying to get the legislature to overturn it. So we're fighting her on that very hard. And it's, I have to say, after doing mostly immigration justice stuff these last 6 years, it's really nice to be doing a project that I think we can win.
Okay, awesome. So tell me, is this part of how you make your living? Is this your personal passion?
Twist that around. I'm going to twist that around and say that I make my living as part of my activism.
Okay.
Because certainly the getting out in the streets, the myth about activists being paid is completely bullshit, except if you happen to be a union employee and your union is organizing a contingent, sometimes they do pay. But us ordinary activists, we pay the bus fare, we pay for the, whatever we need to eat there, we pay all of it. We don't get a dime from any organization for doing it, in spite of how many times the right wing will tell you different. But what I do is I look for business clients that want to have a profitable business that addresses environmental and social issues and that makes them better. A lot of those are authors. So like I produced a book that came out in 2024 for an author with a book on how to be a productive instead of paralyzed perfectionist.
Okay.
And I consider that to be a social change book.
Okay.
I have one hopefully coming out this year that is on sufficiency. When is enough enough?
Okay.
And that's an anti-greed book, just in the same spirit as I wrote my penny pinching hedonist 30 years ago. One of my big motivations for writing that book was to show people that you don't need to make an enormous amount of money and exploit other people to get it in order to have a good time in life.
Right.
That there's ways to do it free or cheap. Okay. So, and then I've had consulting clients who are not writers. I had one who had a solar lighting system the size of a cell phone.
Okay.
And I helped her think about a whole lot of different ways that could be used and write some specific materials for some of those applications, like from disaster relief to nightlights for kids. So I had another guy who had a suite for managing green residential properties, as well as a social network for people who lived in those buildings.
Oh, okay.
And I helped him with some marketing. So these are clients that I have because I'm an activist and because being an activist drew me to reinvent my business in that way. But really, that whole thing, I was just your everyday small business marketing consultant and copywriter until we did Save the Mountain. And that was the most exciting thing I've ever been involved with. We, hopefully you're running video as well as audio when you broadcast.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. So out there, you see the farm I live on, and you see the little mountain behind it. That is a state park called Mount Holyoke, or Skinner State Park. Right next to that mountain, a developer was going to put 40 McMansions going all the way up to the ridgeline. The movement that stopped him was born in my dining room at my instigation. I was the publicity co-chair and the public face of the movement, and I knew we would win. I went in with the winning mindset, and I think that's why we won. Because it wasn't like, oh, this is terrible, there's nothing we can do. But it was like, okay, we've got all of these approaches. Which one is going to be the one that stops the project? And with that attitude, I thought, okay, we'll make the developer's life uncomfortable for 5 years, and then he'll go away. Well, 13 months flat, 1 year plus 1 month, the state took title to that land and added it to the park.
Okay.
I'm not going to go into the long saga about how that came about, but I will say again that having that mindset that we could win this was essential to winning it.
Right. And I think that's the case in almost everything in life. Is if we have a positive and clear intention, it's much more likely to happen than if we're.
Yeah, it's still not a certainty.
Yeah. Right.
I've been in plenty of things where I thought we were going to win where we didn't. But
Yeah.
it's almost, I can't really think of a single instance where people were really had a defeatist mindset and won anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure there must be one or two. But,
Yeah. Well, you
but
tend to get what you expect. Yeah.
Yeah. There are hundreds or thousands of examples of people gaining at least a partial victory in part because they believed they could, and therefore they took different actions.
Well, I know you're political, and obviously it says it right in your bio or an intro. So I literally today was just posted a commentary on someone else's post, a colleague of mine, who was talking about how she's having such mixed feelings today. Happy to be going on a vacation, but feeling really upset and dismayed about what's going on, especially in America, and depressed about and feeling, like there really isn't much choice. And in the deluge of comments below that was a whole lot of, yeah, me too. I don't know what to do. I feel really depressed. This is not okay. This is, just lots of despair. And so in the face of challenges like what's going on right now, we can default to futility. There's not much I can do. How do you think about this current situation and how it can be made better?
Okay, great question. I am also upset and dismayed, and I'm on the barricades most weekends. There's at least one demonstration that I'm going to. I've probably been to 20 since the new year. No, I won't say that. Probably like 8 since the new year, and probably 50 since he became president. But I'm not depressed. And one of the reasons I'm not depressed is back in 2018, when we were going through the much milder Trump 1 administration. We have to remember that was the worst presidency in the history of the country until now. This is worse. Orders of magnitude worse. But back then, my Facebook feed was so full of doom and gloom and depression that I said, I got to do something to counter this. So what I did is March 21st, 2018, I posted day 1 of my daily Facebook gratitude journal. Okay. It is now, I think today is day 2850. Okay. I haven't missed a day chronicling. I don't always post every day. If I'm traveling or if I get home at 11 o'clock at night, it's not going to get posted till the following day. But every single day I have covered what was good in my life that day. And some days were pretty damn hard. The day my stepfather was killed by a distracted driver was a very hard day to do the gratitude journal. And what I did is I wrote about the gratitude I had for the 50 years he was in my life and how he changed me. The day that Kavanaugh was confirmed to the Supreme Court was a very hard day to do a gratitude journal. And I wrote about the resistance movement and how we had almost stopped him. And the thing is, you have to celebrate your victories, your partial victories. You have to recognize, I love this quote, I believe it's from Gandhi. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Yeah. And reminder also that Gandhi was nonviolent. Gandhi was not winning with guns. So we are seeing this now. We are seeing a sea change right now. As you and I are talking, the Renee Nicole Good murder is very, very fresh in people's minds. It's only about 10 days old. And that is clearly already shifting the movement, just as the George Floyd murder did several years ago. Which was also when Trump was president. A lot of this stuff goes under the radar for a really long time, and then all of a sudden it hits a critical mass and becomes something big. And that's true in the commercial world. If you think about yogurt or tofu, they were available in the early 60s, probably earlier. Nobody bought them unless you were on a special diet or for tofu, if you were Asian. I knew about tofu because my mother's second husband was Japanese. That was the one who was killed that I had to write about. But, the same kinds of changes happen in social movements. Think about what it was like for people in a same-sex relationship 30 years ago. Now think about what a tiny little instant of time that is in the history of the planet. It's a microspec. And that change happened and happened fast. Back in the 1760s, the Quakers decided that abolition of slavery in the United States would be a good idea. It took 100 years for that to become a reality. With today's modern, technologically wired and totally connected world, movements change things a lot faster. But you don't often see that change until it's already, it goes up slow, and then boom. And that's always the trend. And right now, that 7 million people, at least, probably more, participated in the No King's Day in the fall. The only event in the history of the United States that had more people involved was the very first Earth Day, which had 20 million, and which was not a radical political event in the same way. It was a consciousness-raising event. I participated in that. It was my second movement thing that I did. And at 13 by then.
Right. Oh, and, a veteran activist by then.
Right. But the thing is that those 7 million did not include people who couldn't get off work, did not include very many people who were undocumented and terrified to go to something like that for being snatched up and thrown into a hellhole in some state 2,000 miles away from them and then shipped in chains to some country they'd never even been to. It didn't obviously include very many children. And the research on nonviolent social change, particularly the research of Erica Chenoweth and Maria, I think her last name is Stanley, but I'm not 100% sure of that. No, Maria Stephan. They say that 3.5% of the population engaged in active nonviolent resistance is usually enough to topple a government. Now, that works out to about 12 million people. So with 7 million participants, and each one of those representing other people who could not participate, or we are basically at that number. So we're not mobilized and organized in a way that will bring down a government yet. But when that time comes, if there is a well-executed call for a general strike, for example, this government's in serious trouble. We're seeing breakaways from super loyalists. Mike Pence is already 6 years ago, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, could we have predicted 1 year ago that Marjorie Taylor Greene would completely break with Trump and become an enemy of his? I still have very little respect for her and for what she stands for, but she had the courage to say, no, enough is enough. Well, you promised us the Epstein files.
Yeah.
Which they've released approximately 1% of.
Well, and so here's the thing, though. It's like there's this, there's too much bullshit to catch up with. In other words, every day there's something new, some new, kind of thing to rail against. If there was one thing, we could probably get our feet under us and bring that to bear. But it's like ongoingly, there's a new, kind of thing that makes you go, what? And your jaw drop and your head shake. And
again,
so
you look at the umbrella. You look at the all of these little issues together. They're all about attacks on democracy and human rights and the environment. Right. Basically, pretty much, on anybody who's ever registered as a Democrat or worked for the government in a way that they don't approve of. But it's all under the same rubric, which means that intersectional movements are really easy to organize. And you see this in these amazing, I don't know if you've participated in any of these mass calls that are organized by like a dozen different organizations working in coalition. The first one was
I'm up in Canada for one thing.
Okay, so you would.
Yeah, I wasn't at any of the King's Day things.
Yeah, but we have. This is on Zoom, but there are Zoom events that are happening fairly regularly. The first one of them, and actually the most recent one I attended, had 1.5 million people register.
Wow.
I mean, I didn't know you could do an online call with 1 million people on it.
Yeah, I didn't think you could.
Well, it requires using Zoom and Facebook and some other platforms all together. Wow. But the interesting thing is the way they got this is that it's not one organization, it's a coalition. So you have Move On, you have Public Citizen, you have Movement Voter Project, you have Working Families Party, which they usually supply the MC, a woman named Ashley. They've got several other groups, the Women's March, all working together. I mean, the first one of these, I thought, wow, why are all these things happening at the same time? I have to pick one. And then I picked one, and I thought, oh, they're all together. Okay, now I get it.
Okay. Well, and that makes sense. Often there's way too many things happening in silos, and those silos don't get connected. So it's an inefficient use of resources, and it dissipates impact. So it's brilliant that they're coming together and working together.
Yeah, and that gives us the structure. When the demand does come out for a general strike, millions of people are going to hear about it through this very established network now. And there's other people who are part of other networks that are not connected with that will also amplify it.
Okay, so just to kind of back up a little bit for my listeners. So most of the people who, my tagline is for those who are too inspired to retire, and many people cannot afford to retire. So about 65% of North American population, and of the other 35%, many are choosing not to because they want to stay active and engaged and continue to contribute. And many of the 65% want to continue to contribute and make a difference. And so, are there ways to, or how can people think about both creating profitable businesses or ways to earn money and also live into their purpose and their passion in some of these ways? What are some practical tips around that?
Okay. Well, first of all, for those looking to start a business, that's one of the things I consult on, and I will give anybody on this call a free 15-minute consult, and that's probably enough time to identify where you can make a difference in your business or start a business that will make a difference. And obviously, if you want to continue beyond that, I have very reasonable rates for consulting, and I'm happy to make myself available. On the activist side, you're never too old and you're never too young.
Right.
The youngest activist I've ever met was 6, which was my kid.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I read a book by someone who was 16 when he wrote the book and 6 when he started, and he's not somebody I know personally.
Right.
A Native American activist in the Southwest. And the oldest activists I've known, I didn't meet them when they were that age. I knew them for 25, 30 years at that time. But I have been to 2 100th birthday parties.
Wow.
For people who were still activists.
Wow. Okay.
And they're great. One of them, this woman, Frances Crowe, she was a local legend. And people said, what do you want for your 100th birthday, Frances? And she's this tiny little 4'6", thick glasses, hearing aids. And she says, I want 100 people carrying signs for 100 causes through the streets of Northampton. She got 300.
Okay. That's awesome.
At that point in her life, I've gotten more patient as I get older, but she had gotten to the point where she was getting impatient. Like, I'm already 100. I don't know how much longer I'm going to live. I'm not waiting for the cops to come and direct traffic. So she said, start pushing that wheelchair now, honey. And her friend did. And our local state senator and the person who was mayor at the time, who were both dressed in their civvies, but participating as people who've been in the activist world for a long time, they ran out and directed the traffic and stopped all the cars for this 300 people brigade with signs for 1 million different causes.
I love it. That's so cool.
You're never too old. You're never too young. So there's always, you find what's in your lane. Not everybody wants to be out on the street demonstrating. And if you do go out on the street demonstrating, you might want to bring a little fold-up chair that gives you a tripod to sit on and a place to rest. And you may want to think about making sure you pee beforehand and where the bathrooms are when it's over so you can run and pee again. That's funny. So you make some accommodations. You may find that you're more into sending texts. There are wonderful tools now for sending texts, and they don't identify who is the text coming from. And you can do 50 or 100 of them in an hour. Some people might want to write letters to or lobby their Congress people. That's something that can be done sitting down and often in Zoom. And I never used to do any lobbying until the last 6 years. That was no, I take that back. Save the Mountain, I did some lobbying. So it's 26 years already that I've known how to do that. But I always did the grassroots stuff before that. But not everybody wants to do that, and not everybody's right for doing it. Everybody's got their own set of strengths.
Right.
Some people might want to bring their business skills in. If you've got accountancy skills, or if you know how to write a rip-roaring press release, which is another thing that I do. I invented the story behind the story press release.
Okay.
And I have a lot of fun with that. So yeah, you're looking not for the who, what, when, where, why traditional format, but for how to make it grippingly interesting. So I once wrote a press release for a book on electronic privacy, and instead of starting it, electronic privacy expert releases new book, my headline was, I don't know if you remember those old It's 10 o'clock commercials. My headline was, It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your credit history is?
Well, okay. Yep. Good. I like it. The reason I was looking over here, by the way, is Craig and Mark Kielberger are activists in Canada who created the We movement when they were very young. And I was just trying to see how old they were. It seems to me one was 9 and one was 12 when they started the whole We movement, I believe. But I was trying to check that fact and couldn't.
I don't know about them, but I know Malala was 11 when she got started. Greta Thunberg was 16.
Yep.
Samantha Smith was 10 or younger.
Yep. Well, yeah. And like you said, you're never too young or too old. And one of the things that I, rail against, and the reason I'm creating the Maturepreneur world movement is I was dismissed and overlooked in an event, and it kind of, surprised me. I'm typically not invisible. I've got blue hair and polka dot glasses, and I'm typically pretty large and in charge and front and center. And so I was like, what's going on here? And I started to look around and realize that all the people over 60 were less called upon or talked to or valued. And in fact, if they were over 65 or if they were women with gray hair, they were literally, and I mean literally, invisible. And that just pissed me off. It's like I've been, my whole purpose, my whole life has been to have people get that they matter and live like they do. And so
thumbs up on that. Thumbs up.
The expression of it changes. How we live into our mission changes over life. Sometimes we, go through different phases of it, but we can express it in a bunch of different ways and live into our purpose in a bunch of different ways. So for me now, my people that matter are those who are being dismissed, about 25% of the population and growing, being overlooked and undervalued and dismissed. And it's like, no, not on my watch. That's first of all, a ridiculous waste of human capital.
Absolutely.
And secondly, there are so many detrimental effects to all of society without having the bracket of young innovation coming from that blank slate and older innovation coming from experience and wisdom.
Absolutely.
Putting them together and creating innovation that's grounded and sensible and change that comes from a very thoughtful space. And
people don't realize with any kind of discrimination against any class of people, whether it's on age, ability, color, religion, any gender, sexual orientation, whatever it is, by diminishing those people, you're also diminishing the privileged people who don't have those resources to call on and who are getting less competent help as a result. And I have to tell you the story of how the Gray Panthers came to be, because it's extremely relevant to what you experienced.
Yep.
So I worked for the Gray Panthers in my 20s as a community organizer. It's the only paid organizing job I've actually ever had. Okay. And it paid me all of $82 a week. The last 6 months, when I'd been there a year, it was raised to 100. Okay. But I wasn't doing it obviously for the riches, but it was a steady income at a time that I hadn't had one for a while. So there was this woman named Maggie Kuhn who worked for the Presbyterian Church. And on her 65th birthday, they called it mandatory retirement, but I would call it getting fired for the crime of turning 65. And she got furious and said, well, if you won't have me, I'll go start a movement to get equal rights for people who are elders.
Yeah.
So the Gray Panther, and she had done some work on the social change end of the Presbyterian Church. So she had some activist skills. She didn't come out of nowhere. Neither did Rosa Parks, by the way. Rosa Parks was a trained activist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Extremely active in her local NAACP chapter, trained at Highlander Center, which was the place to go for activist training in the civil rights movement in the 1930s through 1950s.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was not a coincidence that Rosa Parks didn't go to the back of the bus.
Right.
And she knew exactly who to talk to make that into a movement. And they had been looking for kind of a person that they could tack this on. There was a young woman, very young woman, who had done it a year before, who most people never heard of, Claudette Colvin, because the elders in the Black community decided that she was not going to be the most attractive test case.
Okay.
So they just said, okay, we'll just, file this under a grievance, but we'll wait for somebody that we can really show as a productive member of society, blah, 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 blah. So they waited for Rose. But anyway, Maggie started this international movement because she got kicked out of her job for getting too old.
And so what is the Gray Panthers mission or manifesto or mandate?
Their slogan was Age and Youth in Action. The New York chapter still exists. I was not able to find a national group at this point, although a lot of what Third Act is doing is kind of similar to what the Panthers did. So we organized our chapter. We did a lot of stuff on housing, which was very unaffordable and very poor condition for the most part in New York City.
Okay.
And we organized on healthcare. That's where I first heard about single-payer Canadian-style healthcare. And I know it's not without its problems, but it's way better than what we have here.
It is.
And nobody goes bankrupt to get an operation up where you are.
Right.
So that were their two major issues, but because they had me in it, I got us into a coalition with a bunch of other safe energy, no nukes groups. We worked with my then girlfriend, now wife, got a job also as a Vista volunteer for another agency, and she was doing weatherization stuff for poor people and old people. And we worked with her group on some things, and we would just, I would take my best activist was a woman who was 75 years old, tiny, couldn't see or hear very well. I would take her on the subway because she could no longer manage that herself to some senior center in some corner of Brooklyn. And she'd give a rip-roaring speech. She had been in the Communist Party in the 30s. And she knew how to rile up a crowd. And then I was there with my notepad taking down names afterwards and maybe collecting a few bucks. And that's how we organized.
Wow. That's amazing.
I was 22 and 23.
Okay, so you mentioned Third Act. So tell people a little bit about what they do now, and what are some organizations that those who are interested in finding out what kinds of organizing groups there are for different things they can go and check into?
Okay. Well, Third Act is a multi-issue organization of older people, I think 60 and plus. It's founded by Bill McKibben, who wrote the first layperson's book on climate change and started 350.org. Elders Climate Action is a group I've just found very recently. They seem to be doing some good work. I was on a call that they organized recently. Indivisible is not specifically for older people, but I've noticed that many of the Indivisible chapters do skew heavily towards 60 plus.
Okay.
Those are a few to get started. There's dozens. I mean, there's just so many. I don't think they have meetings so much, but one of the groups we support financially is called Movement Voter Project, and they put resources into swing district elections. There's also Swing Left, which does some similar things. I don't tend to put much faith in organizing through the Democratic Party, but there are elements within the Democratic Party that are doing really exciting things. I know Bernie Sanders is not officially a Democrat, but he ran for the Democratic Party nomination for president, so I'm going to count him here. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, of course, AOC, brilliant organizer. At the state level, we have in my own area, our local delegation to the state legislature is this incredible team of workhorses. who gets stuff done and who are very progressive. And most of them came into office in 2018, which was halfway through the first Trump term. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't think it's a coincidence that Democrats have been winning special elections most of the time in the last 6 months. So I don't say abandon the Democratic Party, but I wouldn't put my organizing energy there. There's much more grassrootsy places to do it. And there's places, I never really understood how much the ACLU and Public Citizen and Earth Justice, the groups that are sicking lawyers on these awful organizations and their awful policies, how much good they have been doing. So those are not really chapter organizations, but they're very good places to support with your donations and to keep an eye on what they're doing, because if you read their newsletters, you're going to be very informed. I also recommend every morning I start my day by reading Heather Cox Richardson, who is a historian and who really looks at how the current moment is something that we have as a country to some degree experienced before. Not necessarily as far crazy as it is, but a lot of there was, in the 1850s, there was a Southern racist senator who physically attacked one of his Massachusetts colleagues on the floor of the Senate with a cane, beat the crap out of him. He was not in good shape after that. And that was about racism. So she's very interesting to read. Robert Hubble is very informative. He's a retired trial lawyer, and he brings a legal perspective. He's also very much a cheerleader for grassroots movements, as well as for the Democratic Party. And both of those are like superstars now. Heather Cox Richardson has the largest Substack subscription in the world. I think it's 2.5 million people or something like that.
Wow.
So you asked, how do you support yourself? If you get to this point, let's just say 1/10 of her readers might be paying her $50 a year, that's an income. Robert Hubble, I'm sure, has replaced his trial lawyer income with his subscription base. He has fewer subscribers, but I think a good percentage of them actually pony up. There are people like Mark Elias, Democracy Docket. I'm a paying subscriber to several of these things. And then there's, as far as mainstream news, The Guardian is great. Associated Press is pretty good. And neither of those are beholden to anybody else, unlike, let's say, CBS News right now and, of course, Fox. So and believe it or not, I've found that there's often very good and nuanced coverage of world affairs on Al Jazeera. They have an English version.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So part of what people may be wondering is, how do I say that? That can they actually make a difference? I'm just one tiny little drop in the ocean. Is it worth the time and energy and effort because I'm just one person? So Rosa Parks was just one person. Lech Walesa, the first president of a free Poland, was just one person. Greta Thunberg, who started an international student movement, was not only just one person, but she was a 16-year-old autistic person. Yes, every person can make a difference. I saved a mountain from my farmhouse here in Hadley. Okay.
That movement would not have happened in the form it happened without me. I founded it. I did most of the publicity for it. I assisted with some of the other committees that we had. And, we won very quickly with that one. Malala, hopefully you'll find better ways to make a difference than getting shot first. But she got a Nobel Prize when she was, I think, 16 for the work she had done when she was 11.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely. We all make a difference. I have, when I do my talks, I have a section on ordinary people and how these people have changed the world. Nelson Mandela was serving a life sentence in prison. Most people would have just given up. He never gave up. And he was in communication with the outside world. And when the outside world was ready to have him back. Amazing. Yeah.
Well, and you don't necessarily have to start a movement to make a difference. You can also participate at a grassroots level. You can be on a committee. You can pitch in and make that difference that only you can make.
And sometimes that difference carries much bigger than you think. Lois Gibbs, a housewife in Niagara Falls, so bordering your country, nobody knew who she was. She started a campaign against toxics, and it was specifically about disclosure around toxics in Niagara Falls, a neighborhood called Love Canal that was being poisoned. That led to directly federal legislation that passed on toxics and on disclosure. Right. So she didn't have any idea that she was going to have that outcome.
Right.
Maggie Kuhn didn't have any idea that she was going to make ageism something that was discussed worldwide.
Right.
Rosa Parks probably did have an idea because the civil rights movement was decades old by then.
Yeah.
But she decided that that was the day that she was going to make her stand.
That was enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And over, one of my favorite examples is 3,000 years old. And that is the Hebrew midwives, Shifra and Puah. In the first recorded instance of civil disobedient nonviolent action that I'm aware of, they were charged by the Pharaoh to go attend the births and kill the Hebrew male babies. And like, oh, Pharaoh, we are so sorry. We can't get there in time. Those Hebrew women, they're just giving birth like that. And they already have the baby by the time we get there and we can't kill them. Sorry. I love that. I just love that. And it's right there in Exodus.
That's funny. Okay, I like that. All right. So you clearly have a lot of passion and a lot of resources. So where can people connect with you? Where can they find out more about you and find your books, etc.?
Okay, well, right now the best place to go is goingbeyondsustainability.com.
Okay.
And that is my business site. And it's in need of an overhaul, but it's probably not going to get one.
Right.
That's where you can pick up freebies. If you go, there's actually a menu item called freebies, and you can pick up stuff there. You have to subscribe to my monthly newsletter for that, but you will enjoy that. And if you don't, you can unsubscribe.
Right.
And the Gratitude Journal is on Facebook, and my profile is open. It is very rare that I restrict who can see a comment or a post rather. So every day I'm writing about what's good that happened to me that day. It might be playing with my grandkid. It might be the meal I cooked and served my wife. It might be a party I went to or a concert, or it might be a social action demonstration with sometimes 10 people and sometimes many thousands.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one thing that has changed is in this new climate, I am much more careful about not tagging people when I'm covering social protest demonstrations and not showing their faces. Yeah, I don't want other people to get into trouble with me. I imagine it's okay to tag you on having done this interview today.
Yes, by all means, please do.
But when there's a public protest, as much as I would love to give credit to the people who were involved and who I saw, I'm taking that precaution. Yeah, because we live in a strange time.
Yeah, and there is retaliation. I have a good friend who's here in Canada, wanted to move up here and work up here, is now going back to the US because she feels obligated to go and take action and do something about what's going on and become an activist. But she is very concerned about retaliation and very concerned about putting anything online, of course, because that tags you and gets you, monitored and all sorts of things.
I'm doing it anyway, but I think I'm probably too small a fish for them to bother with. Yeah. But I do take great comfort in knowing that I can jump on my car and drive 4 hours on a mostly empty freeway and get to Canada.
There you go. All right.
And I love visiting Canada.
Yeah. Well, we're just good people, most of us. Okay. So tell them your website URL again.
Goingbeyondsustainability.com. You'll know you're in the right place because you'll see this book cover pop up when you hit the homepage.
Okay, great.
And Facebook, just look for my name, Shel Horowitz, SHELHOROWITZ, and I'm a pretty frequent poster there. I'm on LinkedIn.
Yep.
And my email address is shel@greenandprofitable.com. But the truth is that email is not necessarily the best way to get a hold of me because I'm buried in email and I don't keep up well.
Right. Yes, I actually have a VA helping me go through and deleting. We're down to 15,000 emails in my inbox.
Oh, wow. I've got 100K in mine. Yeah,
well, I had 40-something thousand and we're down to 30 now. Anyways, okay. So you also have a gift for our people, a 10 ways activism can make you happier and healthier as you age. So tell people about that and how can they get that as well?
Yeah, so it's just going to get it in front of me so I tell the truth about it there. So it starts with that you'll make new friends as you work together on projects, and it goes into some of the other benefits that you will learn, some health benefits, believe it or not, and how you might end up being able to start something that is much, much bigger than you think it's going to be. And the way to get that is you send me an email to shel@greenandprofitable.com, and is spelled out. Don't use an ampersand. And you have to use the subject line 10 benefits of activism, and do not leave any spaces with the words. And then anything I get with that will get emailed that back.
Okay. So that's one way you can get it. The other way, we'll have Shel and his resources listed in the vault. So those of you who haven't gone into the vault yet, please do. It's in the show notes. And when you go and opt into the vault, not only will you be able to see Shel's resources and gifts and so forth, but also all of our guests, all of the people who have contributed and provided resources and shared their wisdom. All of that is in there. So you can go and opt in and get as many gifts as you would like and resources. So you can also go there and get it. And by all means, do follow up with Shel if you do have an idea for a way to get started, to make a difference, perhaps to start a business that is in
or if you're looking
passion.
for an idea, because I can help you kind of sort through your skills and interests and maybe come up with an idea for you. I'm very, very good at idea generating.
Perfect.
One of the books I never got around to writing is how to find your next 10,000 ideas.
Okay. Well, that one you could probably generate with AI fairly quickly.
That's one reason why I won't do it now. But I mean, I came up with that idea 25, 30 years ago. I did a proposal for it and I never went further. But now it's so easy.
Yeah.
But I was doing things like going through the classifieds. And my wife at one point, she said, I said, I think I could find 20. We were on a hike.
Yeah.
I said, I bet in the next 100 feet I could find 20 ideas.
Yeah.
And she scoffed at me, and I think I found 23.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that capability. I'm very similar myself. I cannot drive through a town without seeing what businesses could be started there, where the gaps are and what's needed. And yeah, it's a stupid human trip. Okay,
from
go ahead.
The marketing side, because I was giving a speech to a bunch of home renovation contractors.
Yeah.
And they met in this really divey bar in Springfield, Mass., which is a larger city 20 miles from me. And I went to the bathroom there and I went, ew. And then I came out and I threw away my opening of my speech and I said, how many of the men here have been to the bathroom tonight?
Yeah.
And then I said, how many of you saw the opportunity for contractors in that bathroom? And they all laughed, and I could say anything I want after that.
Yeah, exactly. How long ago did you start speaking professionally?
Well, it depends on how you define professional. If you count getting paid, it's been somewhat small and limited. But I actually ran for school office in junior high. I was probably 13, maybe 12. Okay. And I had to speak through 3 audiences of 800 kids each.
Wow. Okay.
And I had no idea what I was doing. I gave a very poor speech, I think. Okay. But there I was. And I discovered fairly soon after that I liked speaking and that I was I was somewhat good at it and I could get better. And I did get better.
Yeah.
Got a lot better. And I remember that we were doing a no nukes action when I was living in Rhode Island, and we had a swim in at the beach that they wanted to build a nuclear power plant.
Okay.
And I was interviewed on TV by a local station, dripping wet in my bathing suit. Once you've done that, you don't have any fear of public speaking anymore.
That's funny. All right.
About 20, I think.
Okay. So, Shel, you know what I think? I think that I do a workshop called Clarity Compass Workshop, and it's for supporting people who are not clear on what's next or who are asking, now what? How to clarify their vision, their purpose. What is their why? I approach it differently, but what is your why you do what you do? And then what are some ways to monetize that or live into it? So what is your legacy project going to be, or your next step, or your whatever it might be, your mobile lifestyle, or write your book, or whatever it might be, anything from a side hustle to a business empire. I think what we should be conversing about at some point is having you come and Zoom in, do a 1-hour speech on, or work with them on how to think of it from a social change point of view, because for many people, if not 90% or all of us, especially as we age, meaning is as important, if not more important than anything else. It's what drives most older people. It's what, when we don't have that sense of purpose and meaning, we really struggle with. That's why 1 in 3 people who retire struggle. That's why there's a lot of mental health issues and loneliness, because there's not meaning and purpose in our lives. So we're going to stay in touch, and we're going to talk about having you come in and talk about these options for creating.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's so many ways to create meaning and to make a difference, and to make the difference. Like I say this time and time again, to be the difference that only you can be, my friend.
Yes.
Because each of us has our unique note in the choir that we sing. Each of us has the thing that we see and we care about. I am all about supporting people around ageism right now. I'm not taking care of animals and teens, and there's lots of other people who are on that, who that is their passion in their heart. I'm taking care of the people that are my passion in my heart. So each of us has a piece of the world, a piece of life that we really care about, that we really resonates with what matters to us. And so together, we can all get it done when we work together more effectively. And when we say yes to my difference matters. So I really want you to hear that last part. Your difference matters, but only if you make it. Only if you do the work to actually make it happen.
I totally agree.
Awesome. All right. So Shel, what last piece of advice would you like to leave people with?
It builds very nicely on what you just said. It's find your place to do something that's meaningful and go do it. And if you find that you need support for it, there is support out there. No matter what you're choosing to do, there will be people involved in that issue, or having that skill that can mentor you. It's never too late, and you may discover that even if you're 70, your real legacy hasn't started yet.
Yes. Or 80 or 90.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's never too late. And your legacy is perhaps just beginning.
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Grandma Moses never picked up a paintbrush until she was 75.
Yeah.
She painted for 25 years.
Yes.
That's what people remember her for. They don't remember that she was a farm wife until she was 75.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. So on that example, thank you so much for being here, Shel. And thank you for your passion and your lifelong commitment to making a difference. It's people like you who actually get shit done and help us maintain our humanity. So thank you so much for the big impact that you have and the big game that you play, Shel.
And thank you for noticing and appreciating that. It makes a difference.
Thanks. All right, everybody. Have a wonderful week and go be the difference that only you can be. Thank you for listening. I'd love it if you left a comment and subscribed. And I encourage you to apply one aha from this interview right away so you can turn your wisdom into wealth and your contribution into positive change. Bye for now.